Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on behalf of the unique partnership through Alaska Public Media on this Saturday, June 25th. And we're going to jump into things. A quick check of if you need additional weather information on top of what I provide in this broadcast, go to weather.gov. You'll come upon a map of the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii off to the lower left. It's a point-and-click interactive map that allows you to gather forecast, watches, warnings, advisories, and so much more information for anywhere in the country. Looking at the map this afternoon, areas of orange indicate heat advisories in parts of the south-central part of the country and along the west coast, California, and Oregon and Washington. Here in Alaska, we have a red flag warning in effect until 10 p.m. this Saturday evening for the western Alaska range due to very dry conditions combined with very warm temperatures and breezy conditions. Any fire starts in that area could rapidly take off and spread. We're expecting record heat possible across parts of the panhandle here as we go into early next week, especially on Monday and Tuesday. Some areas of the southern panhandle could reach upper 80s to maybe even lower 90s. That's going to cause rivers there in the panhandle, especially the high elevations, to added snowmelt that will cause those rivers to rise and provide a chance of some minor flooding. It's not a definite, but something to keep an eye on. And then lingering smoke and poor air quality continues across much of the interior, either side of the Alaska range. And speaking of that smoke, we've had a marine layer come into the Anchorage area that's keeping temperatures down as of 2-3 o'clock this afternoon, only 57 degrees, and there's also this kind of smoky haze look to it. Not very good air quality. Look over in the southeast panhandle there at Wrangell, heating up already 74, likely going to hit at least near 80 and into the 80s come Sunday and especially Monday and Tuesday with a few spots down that way. Hyder could get up to 90 either on Monday or Tuesday, which would be in record territory. Let's look at what else we got going on in terms of advisories. There is that red flag warning in effect for the western Alaska range until 10 p.m. this Saturday evening. Fire danger is extreme there due to very dry conditions combined with very warm temperatures and breezy conditions. And we expect the thicker smoke to push into the northeast interior as winds change, clearing out in south central. This hot, dry weather that we've had increases fire spread rates. Some gusty southerly winds in the west and southwest part of the state will further enhance spread, though temperatures will not be quite as warm there. Check out your local burn restrictions if you're out anywhere. And then next week shows a little relief across the state. Temperatures won't be quite as warm as we get past early next week, but as high pressure breaks down and shifts a bit more east, it's going to increase the chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms in the interior, which would lend toward the possibility of future fire strikes due to lightning strikes. So that's the thing to keep in mind. And fire danger is very high to pockets of extreme there just north of the Alaska range, especially areas up through middle upper Yukon Valley, Yukon Flats, also very high down there through the Mat-Su Valley. So be very, very careful if you're going to be out recreating, especially camping here over the course of the weekend. Satellite imagery shows low pressure located near St. Paul. There's another little system there over eastern Russia that's going to bring in a frontal system that works its way across the Alaska Peninsula and southwest, bringing some light rain and light rain showers. But notice over the panhandle, the clearer skies, the interior, the inner channels there of the panhandle have the best chance of seeing sun. If you're out there towards Sitka, the outer coast, you may have, depending where the marine layer is, if you get sun, it'll be warmer. If it's cloudier, it's going to stay cooler. But there's the high centered out over the Gulf, surface high pressure at 1030 millibars. And overnight, that low winds up there through the eastern Aleutians, pushing an occluded front along the southwest coast and in through the Alaska Peninsula. And then Sunday afternoon, that occluded front begins to weaken. and it's going to still spread a little further east, not too much more. We continue to see the smoke and haze persist across much of the interior, either side of the Alaska Range, and the high sits in place over the Gulf with very warm temperatures, especially for the inner channels. North end of the Panhandle could be some isolated thunderstorms pop with the daytime heating up there toward Chilkoot and White passes. But certainly by Monday, the high still in place there over the Gulf. We still will see a chance of some light showers out over portions of the southwest and west coast areas. So pattern is going to kind of hang on here, at least into the early week, with the warmest temperatures in the southeast. Looking at lows, 40s and 50s there across much of the southeast, south central. Look at 80 degrees at Juneau, and certainly a few spots could be up around 80 in the southern part of the Panhandle, 81 at Glen Allen. Cooler, though, around Anchorage due to potential for some cloud cover due to a marine layer. Lows again, 40s and 50s across much of the southern and southeast part of the state Monday morning and then Monday afternoon. We're going to get temperatures mid-upper 80s in those inner channels, 85 around Ketchikan, perhaps 83 there around Wrangell, and up to the north, mid-80s at least at Juneau. And looking at the north coast readings overnight tonight, warmer, 40s and 50s. That's going to facilitate that shore ice to really be melting off. The Yukon Valley in the 50s, highs could reach 80, lower 80s there through the Yukon Flats, east central areas of the state. Monday morning, temperatures in the 50s along the middle upper Yukon Valley, 40s, even say places like Dead Horse, 54 degrees, so mild temperatures there along the north slope, especially eastern north slope. Monday afternoon could have temperatures well into the 60s, even up there in the far northeast. 80s otherwise for Yukon, 83, 84 down there at Northway. Temperatures 40s along the western Seward Peninsula. And morning lows Sunday will generally be near or just above 50 there through the lower Yukon Valley and Kuskokwim areas. Extending out along the peninsula and the Aleutians, look for lows in the 40s. Sunday's highs could be into the 70s around McGrath, west side of the Alaska Range, 58 at Bethel. And as we go into Monday morning, lows again, 40s to lower 50s common across the southwest and the Aleutians. Monday afternoon, temperatures will be a little cooler just due to thicker cloud covers and some areas of light rain or rain showers. To get into the 70s, you have to go McGrath eastward. And a quick check of the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook provided by the Climate Prediction Center of the Weather Service, July 1st through the 5th. So this is early July, right around 4th of July. Still above normal temperatures, southeast interior, down into the Panhandle, east side of the state along the Alcan border. Cooler in the west, and precipitation is expected to average a bit above normal, especially centered on the middle Yukon River, westward through the Seward Peninsula and lower Yukon Delta, where we expect scattered showers and some storms that will enhance the threat of fires.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's now time for your aviation weather, and if you have a flight planned either on Sunday or Monday, we continue to watch a warm ridge of high pressure that extends from the surface all the way into the upper levels of the atmosphere. It's centered over the southeast interior along the Gulf Coast, and it's bringing very warm temperatures to especially the inner channels of the Panhandle. Some areas could see record highs in the 80s here as we go into early next week. The interior, VFR conditions with IFR out over the water in the far north, as well as across much of the Bering and into the Gulf Coast. Isolated thunderstorm will be possible, especially over the southeast interior mountains Sunday afternoon. Otherwise, widespread VFR conditions there through the Yukon River Valley, as well as the Brooks and Alaska Range. Very warm temperatures there anticipated in the inner channels of the southeast. Outer channels may see a marine layer extends out over the Gulf. Even parts of Cook Inlet could experience this marine layer, keeping a lid on temperatures and blotting out the sun. For Monday morning, we are anticipating IFR conditions to continue out over the Gulf, as well as areas of Cook Inlet along the Alaska Peninsula, especially the North Pacific side, on the southwest coast on up to the west side of the Seward Peninsula in through the Bering Strait and into areas offshore there of the Chukchi Sea. Monday afternoon, still IFR conditions are anticipated there across the Gulf, extending up into at least the lower portion of Cook Inlet, also along and just off of the west coast and the areas up there in the far north along just off the Arctic coast. Anaktuvik Pass will see VFR conditions on Sunday, as will Adigan Pass further south and west. Lake Clark and Merrill starting out with MVFR conditions, especially there at the east entrances, giving way to VFR conditions as we go through the day. And Rainy Pass could see MVFR conditions along the east entrance there in the morning, giving way to VFR conditions throughout the length of the pass by afternoon. Windy Pass should generally see VFR conditions, as will Isabel Pass, and then further east, Mentasta will have VFR conditions, but a thunderstorm could develop, an isolated storm on the south side, south entrance Sunday afternoon, and then further south and west, Tanita Pass could see MVFR conditions early on, giving way to VFR conditions, and Portage Pass, as usual, will likely see MVFR conditions along the east entrance, including Prince William Sound in the morning, trying to give way there to VFR conditions, whereas we expect VFR conditions to rule there on the west side of that pass. Chilkoot and White, it's going to be a warm one, VFR conditions with some cumulus buildups and potential for isolated thunderstorms in the vicinity of those passes around the inner mountains. And as we go out toward looking at freezing levels, they're above 10,000 feet beneath that dome of high pressure along and south of the Alaska Range, extending up to 12,000 feet there in the lower Gulf and North Pacific. Freezing levels aloft come down to below 8,000 feet there over the Seward Peninsula, northwest coast, and parts of the central and eastern Aleutians. Icing, not a whole lot to worry about. Way out in the central western Aleutians, 8 to 16,000 feet, some isolated moderate icing, and then some isolated icing of 10 to 15,000 feet there, eastern Aleutians into the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Upper level winds, we have that upper level high circulation centered along and south of the Alaska Range toward the Gulf, and some stronger winds aloft, 70, 80 knots there along the southwest coast, up out of the south there at 70 to 80 knots. Broad belt of 35 to 45 knot winds across the west side of the state, kind of between the high pressure ridge and the low that's back out there toward the western Aleutian. And as we bring it down to 3,000 feet, this shows the high pressure situated there at the surface out over the Gulf, and then low pressure there in the northern Bering. And between these two systems, we see a belt of 35 to 40 knot southwesterly winds covering the west side of the state, the western coast, and this will tend to lead toward a broad area of moderate turbulence on the west side of the state for Sunday. We expect surface to 4,000 foot turbulence to extend there along the northwest Arctic coast, Wainwright down toward Point Lay, Point Hope, as well as the Seward Peninsula, including Kotzebue Sound, Norton Sound, and then further south down across the southwest interior and the far western end of the Alaska Range and across the Alaska Peninsula. We expect turbulence surface to 4,000 feet. So that does it for your flight weather. If you do have a flight plan, check the latest conditions and forecast. And if you are able to fly, have a safe flight.
When you think of a national park, you probably envision wide open natural spaces, undisturbed by human activity. There are indeed such places, but even in some of the most remote areas of a place like Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska, the mark of man is present. Marine debris is a menace to the farthest reaches of our globe, and even designated national park lands are not immune. In the summer of 2009, the Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance, a grassroots conservation organization based in Seward, Alaska, decided to do something about the marine debris fouling the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park. Marine debris coordinator Tim Johnson had first-hand experience with the issue.
The summer before, my wife and I, Michelle, had done a paddle from Seward, sea kayak paddle from Seward to Homer. Really, our eyes were open to some areas that we didn't realize there was so much accumulation. It was very deceiving up front. You couldn't really get a feel for the extent and impact of it. You've got this nice high tide line that's quite pristine, and you really don't get a picture for the impact, the amount of debris in that area until you get behind those storm berms. You get back into the lagoons and the vegetation around those lagoons. And then you see the absolute extent back into that veg and how intertwined and enmeshed these decades of trash deposition. So we were just appalled by that and said we got to get something together on a larger scale.
The Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance is a local nonprofit community organization, and they have been instrumental in helping the Park Service obtain funding to get larger boats to help move the debris, and they get volunteer labor and organize the work trips. And so it's really a partnership between the Park Service and the community to help get out and really get a project done that in and of itself any one group couldn't do on their own.
Most of that trash was baggable. However, there were large items, huge, piles of hauser line, for example, that we just had to hoist up onto the boat.
The volunteers didn't just bag, haul, and hoist the garbage, but also carefully recorded what types of debris were collected.
In many ways, the debris itself is a resource. Archaeologists use middens, the trash heaps, as a way of analyzing past cultures. And in one sense, marine debris is a form of a midden. It's a trash heap that left for the future would be something that people could use to analyze our culture. It may not say the best things about our culture or everything that we want, but we need to be able to document what we've done so that we can preserve that legacy, make sure that we as a society don't forget what we've been doing.
We had two larger categories of marine debris that we picked up. Commercial fishing means like, say, gill nets, large hauser lines, anything that would be associated with more of a commercial fishing scale. And then the second category was more recreational fishing and household, which would be general plastics, things like that. So we had about a 75% of the commercial fishing marine debris element, and about 25% of the recreational and household further out the bay. And we had the exact opposite the closer we got to Seward. Within the bay, it was about 25% commercial fishing versus 75% recreational fishing and household.
The trash is not just unsightly for park visitors, but also poses threats to wildlife and marine habitat.
Really one of the larger issues now that you go to this plastic that can really get into the food web and affect the food web differently than something like glass.
These substances, for instance, all these polystyrene blocks that are breaking down into all these little crumbly bits are further breaking down on a microscopic level, and how much of an impact that has, in this ecosystem is yet to be determined, but I think it's got pretty high potential.
Well known that sea turtles will eat plastic bags floating in the water. They look like jellyfish to a sea turtle, and obviously a plastic bag doesn't go well in the digestive system of a turtle. Albatross will see small pieces of plastic floating on the surface and think they're small fish and other food sources and eat that in their stomachs, especially in some of the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. They'll find dead albatross that have starved to death with a full stomach, and it's full of pieces of plastic.
We're affecting our local areas this way, but we need to be thinking about it from more of a state and global, international scale. And most importantly, to try and focus on prevention of it coming in the first place. Because we're just going to see this continuing, to build up on our beaches unless we're able to get a little bit more of an approach on prevention on the front end.
Marine debris is really a global problem, in all the oceans, and there are many different sources. Global shipping is one. Fishing debris from commercial fishing, recreational boating activity on land, stuff blowing off land, washing down streams, people just throwing stuff on the shore.
Though the problem can seem overwhelming, Johnson remains upbeat about making a positive difference.
No, you gotta start locally. You gotta take control of what you can do, and make something with that, and try and move on from there.
Overall, more than 9 tons of debris was removed from the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park and transported back to Seward to be deposited in a landfill.
People gave a lot to the project in order to make it happen. That was awesome. One of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Being able to put that large of a group of volunteers together, dedicated volunteers to put that much effort and give that much time and pull all the different agencies together to see it all happen was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah, very fulfilling experience.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Let's wrap up the show now with the marine weather segment. Look at the sea ice edge. We see throughout the Chukchi Sea, the ice is really melting off. A lot of open water there. On the northern Arctic coast, we are seeing the winds are going to be picking up from the south, so this should help to break free some of the shore-fast ice here over the next couple of days. And we are now entering into the heart of summer. For the southeast coast, the inner channels, winds will be out of the northwest, and we expect temperatures to be getting up into the 80s as we go into early next week. So the heat will continue to build there, and winds will be out of the northwest, 15 knots, waves a few feet. And then as we go along the outer coast, we're looking at northwest winds and winds of 15 to 20 knots. And then as we go on to the day Monday, the heat continues to build there across the inner channels. Winds will be kind of a mix at 10 to 15 knots, waves 2 to 3 feet. Outer coast, winds out of the northwest, 20 to 25 knots, and waves 7 to as high as 9 to 10 feet south of Sitka toward Craig. On Sunday, winds will be generally southwest to west there in the northwestern portion of the Gulf, off of the Kenai at 15 to 20 knots, waves running 4 or 5 feet. For the entrance of Cook Inlet, 20-knot southeast winds with waves of 6 feet, and southwest winds at 10 knots with waves of 2 feet there across areas of Prince William Sound. On Monday, westerly winds to 20 knots and waves running around 5 feet. Winds will be westerly, 10 knots, waves 2 feet there in Prince William Sound, and kind of a mixed bag of 10-knot winds there. Generally, though, out of the south-southwest as we go up the middle and toward the end there of Cook Inlet with waves 2 to 3 feet. On Sunday, winds will be out of the southeast, generally across a broad portion of the region, Kodiak Island down through the Alaska Peninsula, as high as 25 knots on the North Pacific side, and through Bristol Bay with waves of 7 to as high as 8 feet. Monday, winds more variable, around 10 knots around Kodiak Island, as well as the southern end there of the peninsula. and waves 2 to 4 feet on the Bering side, 4 to 6 feet on the Pacific side. Winds will generally be southwest to west there across areas of the central and eastern Aleutians at 10 to 15 knots, waves 4 feet on the Bering side, 5, 6 feet on the Pacific side. And for Monday, winds will be generally out of the south there across the central Aleutians at 20 to 25 knots, with waves running 5 to 8 feet on the North Pacific side and 4 to 5 feet on the Bering side. Lighter winds as you go through the eastern Aleutians at Dutch Harbor. And then along the southwest coast, winds will be southeasterly, 20 to 25 knots. Waves generally running between 4 feet there in Norton Sound to 5 to 8 feet either side of Nunavik Island. And winds will be continuing southeasterly there, Macquarie down south of Nunavik Island to St. Paul and St. George, 15 to 20 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet. South winds to 20 knots, Norton Sound, waves 4 feet. And then along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the south, 15 to 20 knots. So again, some of that shore fast ice will be trying to break loose. Strongest winds are off of Point Lay and Point Hope. Up south, look for south winds in the open waters of the Chukchi Sea to 30 knots. South winds with waves of as high as 7 feet. And continuing winds out of the south off of Point Hope and Point Lay to 30 knots with waves around 8 feet. And south winds continuing there along the Arctic coast where the ice will continue to try to break free, and 20 knots southerly winds. So looking at the synoptic pattern, high pressure will be centered at the surface over the Gulf. This is going to allow for the heat to continue to build where there is sun there, especially the inner channels of the southeast panhandle. We have an occluded front that will be working its way across the Alaska Peninsula into the southwest interior, associated with the low that extends back toward the western Aleutians, and look for areas of light rain and scattered showers along that front as it pushes a little further inland up toward the middle Yukon Valley and across the Alaska Peninsula. Yet there will be another low that's located out toward the far western half of the Aleutians, and that will also tend to push some more cloud cover and moisture in through the southwest part of the state here as we head through midweek by Wednesday. And otherwise, the heat will be building. The interior will see some areas of warmer temperatures in the lower 80s there in east central. And then back through the Panhandle, temperatures on Monday will be in the 80s through the inner channels, with the potential for a few records near 90 Monday and Tuesday. Well, thank you for watching the show. Be sure and join me again come tomorrow evening.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.